Innovation is critical in engineering going forward, and the engineers and the engineering firms that innovate most will come out on top. In this episode of the Civil Engineering CEO, I have with me Patrick McGowan, Senior Vice President and Mobility Operations Director at WSP USA. And Pat is going to talk about how innovation is not just related to technology or a software, it's the way we do things. Some awesome thoughts coming up here from Pat McGowan. But first, a word from our sponsor, Tensar. Before we go on here, I'd like to recognize our sponsor for this episode, Tensar International.
Check out Tensar Plus, the award-winning design software for construction professionals to design with geosynthetics and calculate their value on projects. Tensar Plus is simple to use with a powerful engineering system at its core. Whether you're designing a crane pad or need to build a temporary road over muck, the cost, time, and carbon savings can be calculated, making comparison with alternatives simple. Whatever you're working on, Tensar Plus is your toolbox for success.
Right now, I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today, Patrick McGowan. Patrick is a licensed professional engineer, Senior Vice President, Mobility Operations Director at WSP USA. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hi, Anthony. How are you doing today?
All right, I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Sure.
So let's start off by telling us a little bit about the company. Where are you specifically located, and what kind of services does the company offer? Give us a little bit of a background.
Sure. So I've been very fortunate to work for some really great companies and great opportunities. Work for WSP, which is an amazing company. Globally, WSP is about 66,000 people. We operate in 40 different countries. Our revenues are roughly around $8 billion a year. In the U.S., we have just slightly under 16,000 people and working in 300 offices around the country. And so in WSP, we have several industries. Transportation is one, buildings, energy, water, environmental, construction management, advisory services. And so it involves a lot of different industries that we operate in. The group that I run is Mobility Operations, which we provide operations for state and local governments. So we run the back office toll operations for a lot of toll agencies, the traffic management centers, transit, airport operations, and then we continue to expand those operations, every year as the company grows. So,
Wow,
fun
awesome.
place to be at this time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, wow, big company, and which means I'm sure a lot of big, high-profile projects, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of your career journey, Pat. Did you have a goal of becoming kind of a high-level executive? Talk to us a little bit about your career journey and how it unfolded.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So, it's funny, as a young engineer, all I really cared about was just doing the very best job I can. I was always the first one in the office, last one out, really believed in what I was doing, knowing we made a big difference, and just enjoyed the job. And everything I did, we always looked at, okay, can we do it better? Is there innovations? Is there a better way of doing things? And getting away from the old status quo and trying to always look for ways of improving. One good example is when I was a young engineer, I was put on a project where I designed a big construction project. It was the fourth largest project in the state at the time. And I got into a discussion with one of our leaders, and I said I wanted the project done in 2 years. He said, Pat, no way that's ever going to happen. It's going to be 3.5 years. That's the way you're going to specify it. So the first day I got out to the project, met with the contractors, was like, okay, guys, this is our number one objective. I want this done in 2 years, right? And so we sat down and we came up with some really innovative ways of how to handle traffic and isolate traffic from the construction zone. We came up with some really unique construction methods, and we finished the job in 2 years. And it became a showcase for the city. It became, several awards, and the public loved it. So, that's always looking at how we can do it better, faster, cheaper was kind of the drive. And what happens is you end up building a reputation, and you gain the respect of a lot of people in being able to see those successes, and those opportunities were afforded to me as I moved up the leadership chain. But it wasn't what I started out saying, this is my goal. It was kind of like, let's do the best job we can, innovate, and then you end up building your reputation within the companies.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess a follow-up to that is, I think a lot of engineers and technical professionals, you get to that point where you see management or leadership positions as an option. And there can definitely be some fear because, we're comfortable with the technical stuff. We like the
Mhm.
details. It's what we've known in school and beyond school.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering for you, when you got to that transition point of, there's an opportunity here, I'm going to be a project manager now or leader, whatever the case may be, what your mindset was around it in terms of how you approached it. Was it something where you felt like, oh, I think I could do this, or I'm going to have to work a lot? Like, what was your thought process of taking that next challenge or that next step in your career?
Well, I've always enjoyed challenges. And so every opportunity is a challenge, but it's also a risk, right? You could be successful, you could fail, right? But I think it's important never to shy away from risk. The question is, how do you mitigate that risk? And so you mitigate it a lot by, developing a relationship with peers or leaders and finding those mentors and learning from others, right? Nobody ever goes into a new job knowing everything, right? So you have to depend on those people that you built these relationships with. And then also, it's all about building this great team around you. I think if you look at every leader out there, every good leader has a strong team that's supporting them, and I think that's critical because those are the people that do a lot of the work in these companies.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I think a lot of engineering professionals have that opportunity to go into management, but they are a little fearful for the reasons I said before. But I like your
Mhm.
approach of, there may be some things to be worried about, but you can surround yourself, whether it's with a mentor, with the right people, with different ways to kind of help you to be successful, kind of put the odds a little bit more in your favor and mitigate some of that risk,
Yep,
depending on, just having a plan. Like it's like in project management, having a good plan, right?
exactly. Agree.
So, Pat, you've had, nearly 3 decades of experience. And how have you seen the industry change over the years? And really, what emerging technologies are you thinking about that are really going to shape the future of mobility operations? No, talking about your specific discipline that you're seeing right now.
So, some really, it's a lot of changes happened over the last several decades. And I remember back in, the before the 90s, it was all about let's build our way out of congestion, right? More asphalt, more concrete. We're going to make the roadway safer. We're going to put more guardrail. We're going to try to protect obstructions as people leave the roadway. If they hit something, it won't kill them, right? But the decades and decades of trying to build our way out of congestion and trying to increase safety is important. But the thing about it is we still have congestion. We were back then there were 40,000 lives killed, on the roadway every year, right? And so in the early 90s, we started looking at technology, the intelligent transportation systems, where we were installing sensors throughout the roadway. We're trying to identify when congestion occurs, when an accident occurs, and then be able to respond quickly within seconds to get emergency aid out to those people that need it, to get information out on the roadway so that we're allowing people to divert around certain accidents or in congestion and stop those secondary accidents from occurring. So some really innovative things back then. Later on in the 90s, we got into the automated highway system. So I was part of Lockheed Martin. We had a $190 million contract to go off and build the first hands-free driving pilot in the country. A lot of this technology came out of the DARPA, the DoD research end. We deployed it in a commercial environment. And that's where automated cruise control technology and lane departure systems and backup warning systems all came from. So technology that we were deploying in the late 90s on this pilot are now part of the vehicles that you buy today. And then the other thing, now we're moving into automated vehicles where more hands-free driving and less dependency on the driver who's distracted from making good or bad decisions. And so the automated vehicle technology is going to be a game changer. And that's the one thing that's going to really drive down the number of lives lost on the roadways every year, is when technology is really helping guide those vehicles and stop them from crashing. Because people do get distracted, and like I drive down the roadway, I say, oh, it never happened to me, but it's all the people around me also are part of that solution. And then it also changes the quality of life, being able to for the elderly and handicapped people to be able to transport from point A to point B without that dependency. So autonomous vehicles have a lot of technology that's going to benefit not only the safety but the quality of life. And so those are things that we've actually been involved in since the beginning. And it's really interesting to see this exponential change that's occurring in transportation. And I think eventually, the system that today is going to look very, very different in the future. In our group, one of the things that we're doing is, our company, the group that I manage, we continue to expand. We're probably one of the faster growing businesses within the company, and so, but we never stop and just continue on with the same old thing. So we're always looking out as far as what is the future. And so there's two things that we're working on now, where right now we have a program that we're promoting called Mobility Marketplace. And what happens is, when you go into a major metropolitan area, whether you're taking Uber, whether you're taking transit or rail, or you're paying for tolling or electric vehicles or scooters, every one of those is a different payment method. And at the end of the day, you have no idea what you're paying for transportation. You have no idea how to become more efficient in the way you move transportation. So within WSP, we're really championing this program and idea that you have a single account, single payment system for all your transportation needs. And so I think you'll start seeing that evolve over a period of time, which makes it so much easier for people just to move within a metropolitan area. You just get on any public transportation or private transportation and get you from point A to point B. The other thing we're working on is called road user charging. And today, transportation is collected through a gas tax. Yet we have electric vehicles that do not pay that gas tax. And so there's this issue that's evolving within the industry, that we have more electric vehicles out there not paying for the transportation and the maintenance and the repairs of what they're using. And so there's a program within the country looking at charging people for transportation per mile instead of just off of a gasoline tax. And so that's another area where WSP is kind of looking out in the future and saying, okay, how would we address that as a company as these programs evolve?
Wow, interesting stuff. And I think that, first of all, like you said, the mobility, I mean, this discipline is really, moving right now, if you will, for lack of a better term, in terms of technology and, so much going on. And I love those projects you're talking about, because they're massively impactful to one's life, as you said, right? Like your everyday life, your movement, how you're getting around. It's kind of like we've made a lot of things easier, like going to the store and scanning something to buy a coffee or something and making it quick. Now we're looking to make it quick for real important things, like, how you get around, right? Like the way you move and things of that nature.
Right.
And I think that that's great. And to me, like, when you work at a large firm like this that has, a presence globally, I think you can work on some very large, pretty awesome projects.
Oh, absolutely. Very, very true.
All right. So all that being said, let's talk a little bit about, how do you balance kind of this need to provide these cutting edge and innovative services with that same need to maintain profitability and continue to grow as a company? Because, there's a little bit of a balancing act there.
That's interesting. That's a great question. And the thing about it is, I think the two are related. Innovation and profitability are tied together, and because the clients that hire us are looking for better, faster, cheaper solutions to their problems, and the companies that innovate are really preparing the clients for the future. And as a result, that becomes a huge discriminator. If you're known as a company that's always innovative, not just doing the same old thing over and over and over, but really looking out for the client, for trying to figure out those best practices that they should be implementing, that becomes a discriminator to win you more work, which offers higher profitability. And more importantly, it offers growth opportunities for your staff. As that company continues to grow and you built this culture of innovating and winning, and it makes opportunities open for so many people within the company.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they are tied together, and I think one can help the other for sure. As long as we're staying on top of there's so many different technologies. I'm sure at a company like WSP, you have a lot of committees and a lot of people just focusing on the technology and, what's coming down the pike. What can we, focus on? And that's really important part of this.
Yeah, and that's it's really part of the culture. It's not an effort where, okay, every day everybody's going to go sit over here and think about innovation. It's something that's become natural within the company, and I think that's where the benefits come, because everybody is talking about it. Everybody's looking for, just, are we doing things the best way we can be doing? So I think that's one of the things that makes us very unique.
No, I love that. And I think innovation today, when people talk about innovation, obviously the first thing probably that comes to mind is technology. But I think going back to your story way back when you were project manager on a site, just trying to think of different ways to work on projects is innovation.
Absolutely.
Right? It doesn't matter if it's a software program or just a better delivery process or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. That innovation is not only about technology, it's about processes, procedures, how you do things more productive, how do you help your client to get the most out of every dollar they spend. And so it's really driving a lot of different things, but it's not just computer software. It's a lot of different things.
Yeah, for sure. So switch gears a little bit, talk a little bit about leadership. And we've had a tumultuous few years, to say the least, worldwide, with COVID. And, obviously our industry is very busy with infrastructure, the new infrastructure legislation, just a lot going on. As a leader, I think obviously people are looking up to someone like yourself in the company for when something happens, how you react to it, what's the message from leadership. So I'm just curious as to how, you personally manage things like that, in terms of like trying not to overreact or underreact to things, knowing that, you're kind of putting some energy out there for your team and like they're kind of going off of you.
Yeah, that happens every day, right? So there's always something happening every day. And the thing about it is you rely on your experience and you solve the problem. You've got to work the problem. And, I've seen a lot of people just react to a problem. You got to work the problem, and you got to do it in a timely manner. To delay something or, not respond to it is not an answer. And I think everybody really needs to understand that for every action, there's a reaction. And so you have to work an entire problem, right? And you've got to see the whole picture. And I think I think a lot of people sometimes will try to solve an immediate problem, but not think of all the different side effects and reactions of other things that are going to happen. And I think it's important to really see the whole picture, come up with a solution that addresses the whole problem. And, but you're right, it happens every day, right? And some problems would seem very simple that could be more complex than you think. And you've got to think through that whole solution.
Yeah. And I think what you said about experience is important, because I know a lot of engineering professionals that are new managers, and sometimes I think maybe they don't have the confidence yet or that experience, and they might feel like, oh, I don't know what decision to make, and they get really nervous and are anxious about it and can get thrown off a bit. And I think that's just normal. I mean, I think, the more decisions you make, the better you're going to get at it. You can't expect to go in there and be like very calm and everything that happens on day one as a manager.
Right.
But as long as you're learning, I think, from every experience, then you'll just get better.
Yes. And to think that I'll tell you one thing, every decision I made was never always the best decision, right? So you make mistakes. And I think that's something that you accept. And I think it's a test of someone's character on how they respond and react to errors that they made. How did they adjust? How did they move forward? Those type of things. And so I think that's really important. So it's a learning experience that people will continue to learn for 30, 40 years, they're still learning. And I think it's important that, people shouldn't be afraid to make decisions. I think that is the worst decision worst thing you can do is just not react or do not respond to a problem thinking it's going to go away. It never does, right? So, and then, like I said, you've got peers and mentors and people that have maybe experienced similar things, and I think those are good advisors for a young manager moving up.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about, building your confidence by,
Mhm.
becoming a manager, getting out there, leading teams, talking to clients, right? You don't learn these things really in the classroom, like we said earlier.
No,
That's the way you're going to learn it on the job.
right.
So with this kind of cultural shift over the last few years of kind of more work from home jobs,
Mhm.
more virtual work, how has that changed, or how has WSP kind of approached that in their workflow? Maybe you'll talk more specifically about your team or mobility team, but how does that look now?
So I will say one thing that this is these last 3 years have been probably the most fascinating years I've ever seen with the change in the workforce. Before COVID, the workforce was very predictable, and it's amazing to see the changes that have occurred over the last several years. Um, and one thing that's happened is it changed very, very quickly, and it continues to change. It hasn't stopped changing, and people's attitude and the way they address the work is still evolving. And so, when COVID first hit, we had hundreds of people just within my group that we had to, put in a remote workforce. And it's caused issues. You have automation issues, you have internet issues at homes, you have distractions at home, and then now over a period of time, the people that you hired locally are now moved in some locations,
Hmm.
different locations. So, things have changed, and the younger workforce I thought was probably the most interesting to watch in that they love the idea of work from home initially, and then it became an issue of they miss the interaction and the socialization that comes with work. And even though their productivity was high, they missed that interaction and building those networks and the relationships, the things that we enjoyed growing up in the workforce prior to COVID. And there are a lot of benefits to working from the office. I mean, you have the networking, and it's not only networking with your peers, but it's also networking with the leadership, the executives, the people that are going to recognize your value and pull you up into the organization for better opportunities. And it's hard to build a relationship over teams, right? And and then also there's a lot of solutions in the hallway that are solved, right? So everybody talks about the hall talk, and a lot of that was very productive. All these little issues that you were able to resolve just by passing somebody in the hall, the mentorship. And then one of the things I thought was really interesting to watch is that people have to vent. And sometimes not everything works perfectly in engineering and leadership, and you build up these frustrations over a period of time. And it's always good to go to your friends, say, let's get a coffee and let me tell you about my problem. And it's a stress relief, right? And so, but when people are working remote, they did not have that opportunity to release that stress by venting to their friends and that or their peers. And I think that was something that was missed. So I I see the shift that everybody thought, okay, everybody's remote workforce, and now people are saying, I need to get back in because I miss these opportunities. So I think they're recognizing the things that they've been losing over the last several years. But I do think there's going to be this hybrid of, I think it's not 100% in-house on site. It's not going to be 100% remote. It's going to be this hybrid solution so that people get the benefits of reduced cost and frustrations of commuting, but then also they get the benefit of being in an office, building those networks, being able to solve problems more quickly, and to create those relationships that are really critical as you move up in your career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of the things you really miss, which you talked about, is mentoring. You know, you can't like bounce things off of people, especially as a younger professional when you're trying to find your way. It's just so much better to be able to go into someone's office and say, hey, Pat, I got a problem with this client. I got an issue on this project. Like, can you help me out type of thing? And I think that those things, you don't see it per se, but it does have an effect. I also think sometimes when people work from home, I think the idea is, oh, that's great. It's easier. It's less stressful. I actually think sometimes it's the reverse, because now like you're just, everything is in one place. Like there's no separation between home and work, and it just can happen. You can overwork yourself, quite frankly.
That is a very, very good point. I absolutely agree with that 100%.
So, all right, last question I have for you, Pat. How do you see WSP's mobility operation services kind of evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you plan to stay ahead of that curve that we've talked about here in terms of new technologies and kind of industry developments?
So right now, the company is growing in almost every sector that we're in right now, and will continue to grow over the next 5-10 years, because a lot of the agencies are relying more on the private sector, the consultants, to manage certain functions within those agencies, and I think that continues to grow. But the thing about it is, every time we go in and approach a new opportunity or a project, we always step back and we pull the best minds we have together, and really deliberately make an effort to come up with a more innovative way of doing it. Because the thing about it is, you may come up with the best solution, but next month, all your competitors have read about your solution. And so you're always really striving to come up with the bigger, better, faster ways of doing things. And I think that's really important. And I touched on a little bit of some of the new technology that we're talking about with this mobility marketplace and this road usage charging. And so it's continuous, like I said, a culture of innovating continuously to stay ahead of the competition. And the good thing about it is, it's the clients that benefit from this competition. And so I think that's really, I enjoy it. We enjoy we enjoy the competition, the competition between all the different companies, and we love it when we come out ahead.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's an exciting time in the industry. And I know, especially in mobility, I mean, there's like lots of stuff going on, and I appreciate you spending some time with us here today. Once again, Patrick McGowan, Senior Vice President, Mobility Operations Director at WSP USA. Patrick, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show.
Great. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Pat. I mean, he's got a lot of experiences at a very high level in a leading engineering organization. And I really love the point about how, innovation is the way you deliver, right? The way you think through things, right? Don't be swayed to just tying it to technology. A lot of times technology is going to help us innovate, but we also want to be thinking 360 all the time. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please consider subscribing to our channel here. We put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.